We're going to call to order the Community Facilities Building Committee meeting for December 11th, 2024. It is now 7 o'clock. Can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I'll call the roll. Lori Hayes O'Brien is joining us via Zoom. She's not feeling well tonight, so she is here. Dawn Contapio is here. Ron Feligno here. Dave Galla.
Here.
Richard Kroll. Here. Matthew Slather.
Here.
Kelly Malazzi. Here. Mike Buswell.
Here.
Dean Fabrizio.
Here.
Tony Silber. Christine L. Elris.
I'm here.
Thank you. Everyone is here tonight. All right. We'll have to have an approval for the November 13th minutes, 2024.
So moved to approve the minutes of the November 13th meeting.
Second. Oh,
Got one change.
Yeah, discussion. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, the date on the minutes was incorrect. It says the 11th, it should be the 13th.
Okay, so we'll amend the minutes to November 13th. Can we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended for November 13th, 2024? Ron? And a second? Second. Thank you, Rich. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Any discussion first? No discussion? Okay, all in favor, please. Hi, thank you. Passes unanimously. All right, and on our agenda, we have public comment for this evening. If you could state your name and your address for us, and keep it to about 2 minutes if possible. Okay, thank you.
Turn the mic at the base. Yes, and you
Yes.
can pull it down closer to you. Sorry. Okay. My name is Marlene Silverstone, 3 Cherry Blossom Lane. I have a question as far as, I was looking at the Trumbull Senior Community Center feasibility study.
Talking to the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the Trumbull Senior and Community Center feasibility study update, December 2023, trying to get a feeling as to what are the functions for the senior part of the center and what are the programming functions for the community center part. And so from there, I just wanted to know if the committee and the architect at some point could confirm that, as far as I can tell, the senior center functions would be Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. As far as the community center part of it, I didn't find a clear indication what that meant. It was from 2016 on to the current Hardy Lane property. And I know the architect started in 2016, talking to different community groups and to like the library, the park and recreations. And so I don't see any clear understanding what functions are being designed for the community center part of it. I just know that one of the things that they mentioned was a pool, and I know that no longer is part of the planning. So I would appreciate if that also could be addressed by the committee and the architects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to press this, or?
You can leave it on, okay, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening? Anyone else who would like to speak? No? Okay, thank you. We will close public comment at 7:04. And then next, we will go to the project discussion. We have Dimitri here tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. Evening, everybody. Just for purposes of introduction, for anybody who doesn't know who I am, I'm Dimitri Paris. I'm the Superintendent of Parks and Recreation. I am also the town's tree warden. I was asked recently to go to the Grace Church property and do an assessment of a series of identified trees in the front of the parcel for purposes of overall health, aesthetic value, longevity, etc. So to try to keep it brief, there are a wide variety of different types of trees that are within this area, all kind of consistent with what you'd find in the nursery trade probably for the last 50 or 60 years: dogwood trees, cherry trees, paper bark, birches, etc. Most of the understory and ornamentals, which comprise the greater majority of the trees in question, are truly at end of life. They're showing great stress because of their age. There's a lot of decay. There's obviously insect infestation, disease. They really don't, at least from my professional standpoint, provide much value, and certainly won't live very much longer in their current state. It's, nobody did anything wrong. It's just simply the natural course of things for those type of trees. There are a couple of other exotics that are mixed in there, not particularly good examples, very badly pruned and damaged Japanese maples, etc. A few other trees that were identified actually would be classified as shrubs, so I'm not even considering those. If they needed to be looked at further for health and vigor, I can do that as well. I think the trees in question reside pretty much in the center of the main planting area in front of the church, which are essentially two, though most people would view them as three sugar maples. The largest of the three trees, I'm estimating somewhere between 160 and 180 years old. It's an older tree for sure. I'm sort of going to go through these in reverse order for a reason. The second one is probably about 100 years old, and then the third actually isn't a tree at all. It's part of the second tree. It's a water sprout that developed somewhere over time and off of its root mass and developed into a tree. So that's nothing to discuss there. That's just sort of crowding out everything else that's there. The second tree, the smaller tree of the two, actually has decidedly one-sided. It grew in the shadow of the principal tree for a great many years, so it's essentially a one-sided tree. It's got stresses leaning away from it as best it can. But the most relevant factor is there's significant rot. You could, put an object into the cavity well over 2 feet and see that there is decay. So within that cavity, no real practical way of determining how bad it is, but it's certainly there. So that tree, for all intents and purposes, is also in a significant state of failure. So now to the big tree, the largest of the maples. It's kind of a little complicated factor here. When we measured it out, the first thing that we actually noticed is, even though it seems like a very healthy specimen and with a very large trunk, it's really not a trunk. It's 3 trunks. It's a feature called included bark. So when trees grow within branches grow within very close proximity to each other, they can fuse and stay that way for a very long period of time. But in fact, they're separate, or separate to varying degrees. So if you've ever seen a tree split and fail, it's primarily because there is included bark in the trunk section. That tree is like 3 trees if you look at it, and if you look right up against it, you'll see these bulges in the trunk, which would otherwise be not cylindrical, but smooth. They'll come out to a point. If you notice, there'll be a center section of each one of these ridges coming down the tree. They correspond between each of the 3 arteries. So there's an artery, there's a ridge, an artery, ridge, artery, and a ridge. What you're basically seeing is the tree has done this. It's growing like this. It's essentially rolling around itself. So it's actually a space. It will take nothing for those to essentially open. And that is what they've attempted to do, I guess years ago when I was doing the investigation. There's indications that tree was cabled and attempted to try to prevent that from splaying open all those years ago. they're still up there. Not in the best of shape, but they're up there. So my professional assessment is you don't mess around with those type of situations, especially if you're intending on having activity and whatnot. If this was out in the middle of nowhere in a park, maybe. My assistant asked me, would you leave that tree near a playground? Absolutely not. No matter what it looked like, that tree would come down tomorrow, just for that reason. Just to jump ahead, well, couldn't you do something to prevent it from opening up? Potentially. However, it's not generally done in the industry any longer unless there is a significant reason and a way to sort of cordon those trees off. Reason being is that those things can fail at any time. A wire can break, a bolt can get loose, but most importantly, you know that there is a flaw. You've taken those actions to prevent it or attempt to prevent it from failure. If it were to fail, that liability falls solely on you because whatever you did, you didn't do it correctly. There's no doubt, from a professional standpoint, that included bark within that trunk is going to, within short order is relative, I know, but there is no way that tree will be here as a legacy tree. It just doesn't have the capacity to do it. And along those lines, it is a sugar maple. Sugar maples, there's a lot of discussion, these trees could theoretically live for 300 years. That's incredibly, incredibly rare. And it's also not necessarily a specimen or a tree that you would, embrace or want to keep. It's life in a technical sense. You might have a single stem and not much else. So I think you're really looking at a necessity to look at removal of all of those trees at this point. That's the short synopsis. If you guys have any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to. Michael.
Dimitri, how many total trees are we talking about?
It depends on who you're talking to. I mean, I would say between the ornamentals and the maples, there's 3, 5, 6, 7. There's probably like a dozen, trees that you would consider to be trees, in varying ages, of course.
How many are directly where this building would go? Like they would have to be removed if we wanted to put the building inside this footprint.
I can't speak to that. I think I'd have to defer to Rocco. I mean, in terms of its placement. However, if you were to try to attempt to save, I'm going to say the maples, you would have to be well beyond its root zone or its drip zone, which would put you at this point into the driveway of the church. So it's a significant area if you wanted to go down that road. That really wouldn't be it wouldn't be like an area that you can shrink down, especially in case of the condition of the tree as it is right now.
Can you just state your name? I'm sorry, it's because they're recording it, so
Mike Buswell, Town Councilman.
thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Kelly Malazzi. Just in the realm of medicine and things like that, is there anybody that you work with, any colleagues that you've conferred with on this to concur with your findings?
Well, as it turns out, what I did was we have 2 deputy tree wardens that work under me. So I assigned them independently. We did not prime them one way or another. Just go up there and come back. Well, within the industry, pretty much there was a lot of laughing, like, what are you saving here? in terms of the what's left of the dogwoods and the cherries. They really are that bad. But both of them picked up on the included bark. Actually, I didn't originally catch the cabling. One of the deputies did. He said, "Did you see the cabling?" And so, yeah. So there have been 3 separate eyes looking at the trees in that area, and that is a key feature.
Thank you. I mean, it was very thorough. I feel confident in what you're telling us, and I hope that everybody at home understands, what you're saying, but it's it's fascinating. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you going like, you should teach a class, like a natural resources class. I'm thinking I want to bring my kids so you explain this to them. It's really interesting. So, no, I understand. But I just want to say you've been very thorough, and we very much appreciate the information because I think it settles some things for us. So thank you.
Dave Gala, just a quick question. In your professional opinion, regardless of placement of this building, whether there was going to be activities on there, it sounds like you're saying that these trees do present some sort of a safety issue?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Dimitri. We
Thank you,
appreciate the
everybody.
report. Okay, then moving on, I believe Rocco is going to do a presentation for us. Give us some more information on where we're going.
Wait for it to come up on the. I can see it here.
We had it before. However, he's.
Should I get the slide projector?
Uh-oh.
Can we move without it for the time being, or do you want to start? And then if we get the screen moving, or it comes into view, we can bring it up.
Okay, well,
Up to
kind
you.
of talk about it briefly, give you the brief synopsis of where we have come in the last month. We presented a couple of schemes, or one scheme last time, showing a reduction in the gym function of the senior center, a reduced height building with a reduced height, as you say, gym that would be good for, dance and exercise, pickleball, and other kind of lower sports. After that meeting, it was kind of discussed among some of the committee members. Dimitri, as in the past iterations of this building, we've had a full-size gym all along. And they weren't sure they really wanted to give it up. So they asked us to kind of relook at that and see if there was a way that we could make a full-size gym or almost a full-size gym work in the building.
Little chin. It's Phil.
Over here.
Just make sure you're plugged in.
So one of the other things we did over the last month too is there was a walk through the site with some of the residents that was attended by committee members and also myself. We walked through a lot of the backyards that abut the property. We talked to the property owners and we listened to some of the concerns they had. We also kind of told them like where we've been as far as designing this building all along and all the different properties we've been at. And then we kind of took in some of those concerns, and once we get it up here, we can kind of show you what we did. I guess starting from the front part of the site, one of the things that we added this time was a gate, right, to block the roadway that goes down to the parking lot in the back. So the idea would be that we'd be able to lock that gate at night when the facility closes to kind of restrict any access to the back parking lot for
I'm,
teenagers or
I'm on.
other people who may want to see that as a dark place to kind of hang out or just, crash in their car, that type of thing.
Showing boards that
Everybody appreciated the buffer that we put there, but they asked for maybe a barrier, a stronger barrier into their yards, whether it's a fence, a berm, which, we've noted on the plans, and the next iteration you probably see, we'll see some detailing of something that would act as a barrier, whether it's a taller PVC fence, maybe a field stone, maybe there's a berm and there's a short fence on top of that. But the main thing is that we want to keep any cars from having their headlights being directed into homes at night, to kind of, shall we say, make it difficult for access to people's backyards. As it sits, the bigger part of the property where we're putting the main parking is very far from the north side, or at least farther from the north side than it is from the south side. And I think we'll, got rid of some of the concerns in that we have that kind of overflow parking in the back that's not really paved, right? So that wouldn't be used a lot. And then, let's see, what were some of the other things that we added? Well,
Yeah, lights at night,
Yeah.
how are the lights going to be penetrating
Yeah.
on the parking
We're-
lot versus?
we're
the
always required
building?
to have direct cutoff lights. Now, that's part of the code. So the idea is that the lights have reflectors or fins or something on them that keep the light going straight down, and there shouldn't be any bleed into the properties abutting them. That's kind of the idea. They're also full cutoff for dark sky, what they call dark sky compliant, so the light can't bleed up. So the only light that goes up really is the reflection from what comes off the parking lot. Looks like we might got it. Yeah.
Ron Fligno. Do we have any idea of the height of these light stanchions?
Right now, I mean, we don't have an official one. Like, we could probably come up with a sample next time because we've engaged our site civil engineer.
But are like 10, 15, 20 footage
they're
required
usually
as opposed
like
to a 10-foot or 5-foot?
14 to 18, somewhere in there. But you can get them kind of a,
So
Hey,
the two
look, they're up.
heights could be theoretically mixed at different locations?
Right.
Thank you.
thank you. He's controlling it. You're not?
I got it on.
Okay.
You gotta. You should be able to.
Yeah.
Your presentation, I hope.
You talk into the mic, I can't
We can't hear you.
Can't hear over here.
Okay.
There's like a vent that's on. You need to really.
I gotta talk loud, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is this not? All right. Okay, so here we are with the site aerial. For your question, Mike, the trees that are in question are in that big center area, and yes, the building is basically on them. It's right next to that big tree. It's not actually on it, but it's next to it. But the parking lot would be where it is now. So here's kind of a proposed, schematic look at the site plan. So you see the gate on the drive going down. And I changed the label for the planted buffer, so it's a planted buffer and a barrier around the two side property lines. You see the overflow parking, and then we're labeling the back of the property undeveloped. We don't have any plans on doing anything back there. And then kind of some of the additions that came from some of the plan changes with, the manipulation of the gym, is we have kind of a lower gym entry or kind of little amphitheater. And then, one thing that Tom and I talked about today was we see how it is there. That's about 1,500 to 2,000 square feet of kind of a patio that's outside the athletic room. And he was thinking, well, I think we can actually make that area bigger, to kind of extend it to the east and create a, kind of a nice outdoor area that's kind of sunken in. And so upstairs, the plan, really hasn't changed much. We've kind of added some things in there so to help you kind of visualize what goes on in the spaces. As you come in the front vestibule, still you have the library lounge on the right side. You have the admin area on the left, or I guess it would be everybody's right and left kind of the opposite as you're looking at it on the screen. But bathrooms, you come down to the cafe space and you see we've kind of laid out, kind of a furniture plan for it. We have an outdoor patio that would be outside the games room and accessible from the games room, and then, a conference room. And this is the newer plan downstairs. So if we'll come in from the bottom, you go in the vestibule, you come into the lobby, there's will be a grand stair, a monumental stair that will take you up to the upper level. You have the food pantry with 3 offices inside, and as you go back, you have the arts and crafts room that's on the right, and then as you get to kind of towards the end of the hallway, you take a left, and then you go down a ramp. It goes down about 2.5 feet. And so you get there, and you get into the gym. So the level, or the floor levels from the main part of this lower level to the upper level is 21 feet. Okay. Now you go down another 2.5 feet, so that gives us 23.5 floor to floor, which should give us about 19.6 to underside of structure. So you're just about 20 feet to underside, and that's our estimate. We really have to engage our structural engineer, have a design made, and tell them to maximize the clear width in the bottom without going down too much more. And as you can see by the footprint, there is a basketball court that will fit. That is a middle school basketball court that's similar to what we had at the Hardy Lane, right? That's those lines. And then you have the 3 pickleball court lines behind that. And as you can see, we've changed the name. It's an exercise activity room. So it's made to be used for the dance classes, the activity classes, pickleball, basketball, and then you're high enough to do basketball, volleyball, and some of those other sports. And as you continue outside, you have the outdoor activity area. So we saw that as a place for maybe an outdoor yoga class or Pilates or some low impact type of classes for the seniors. It could also be used as a recreation and lounge space, during the summer. As you can see, this is kind of the west elevation from Main Street. We're proposing a big buffer, as you saw last time. That really hasn't changed much. This elevation hasn't changed much since the last time you've seen it. Kind of a closer up. One thing I did do, or I want to propose in the gym, being is that it's buried, and we need an egress stair coming out the back, to be diagonally opposed to get everybody out, is to have create the stairwell as kind of a light well. That stairwell doesn't connect another floor, you're just exiting, egressing people. So if we could have, some windows on the, I guess would be the south side of the building and in the stairwell, and then a kind of a high clerestory window inside the gym to let natural light come in through the back. So that was one of the things we've added. So this is a look back from the east. And again, so you see on the left side of the building, there's the kind of sunken patio area. As you go over to the right, you have the access for the food pantry. You have the main entry. Then there's the arts and crafts room that's going to be on the right side of the building on the lower level. Then above you have the games room with the outdoor, roof patio on that. And then here's kind of a look down into what that area might look like.
I see you have some of the houses modeled in outside. Would it be able to look at like a point of view from the house? A lot of folks on the street there were interested on what they would be able to see.
Okay, that's something we can
we
can do
Okay.
next time.
Thanks.
Dean Fabrizio. I just want to make sure they knew your name.
Rocco, another question. Dave Galla. So in these schematics, and this is very well done. I do like to see the buffer in there. That's incredibly helpful. All the plantings that are on both the left and the right side of this particular image here, would that include the current tree line that is along the Long Hill Village?
No,
Or is that- that's in addition to?
This is addition to, yeah. This is all on the, I mean, and it's really up to our landscape architect to decide what goes there.
Okay.
You know, to decide the heights and what's gonna grow good next to those pine trees.
Sure.
So it's conceptual at this point. but
Conceptually,
that's-
in addition to
this
the
is what
pines that
we're-
are there. Okay.
The width of the buffer is what we're trying to get across to with these
Thank you.
images, that, it's considerably wide. Yep, Mike?
Rocco, I made the recommendation to shrink the gym into a fitness room. Why go back to the middle school sized gym now? Well, who was behind putting the middle school sized gym back in?
Well, I had a meeting with Tom. Dimitri was there. Lori from the committee. I'm not sure exactly who was all there on the committee with some input.
But what was the reasoning? Like, what are we missing that now with a full size gymnasium? What's the purpose of putting the gym back in?
To get in other types of sports that would require the height that we didn't have in the other scheme.
Like what?
Basketball.
So we're turning it back into a community center with basketball.
No, I wouldn't say that.
That's what we're doing.
No, that's not. It was really the height that we're trying to get back.
Right.
It isn't expanding it, making it smaller or bigger. It was the height, I believe, that was in question in the last meeting that we had.
Last month, I was told that my idea was great to take the court out. It was economical. It was going to please the neighbors. Everybody was on board. Then we come back a month later, we get a brand new gymnasium right back into it. That was my point.
Yeah, and Michelle did make a point that the seniors do play basketball, and there were some comments that they were not in favor of making the gym smaller. But we'll let Dave Gala, he had his hand up, and then Kelly. Thank you.
Yeah, is this the same? This is the same footprint area, right?
Same
Taller.
footprint.
I mean, I'm in favor of a taller gym, to be honest. I don't know why we would leave it shorter gym and remove capability from it. Is there a reason that you'd want to do that?
Yeah, because we're trying to do a good faith thing to the neighbors, so it's not 24/7, 7 days a week, right? When you put a full-size middle school gymnasium, it's going to bring all the rec programming over, right? And it's going to turn that into an around-the-clock morning, afternoon, and evening.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
What's your reasoning for that? So were we going to come back here 2 years from now and there's not going to be programming in there?
I don't need a reason to not have an assert. You're making the assertion. What's your reasoning?
Yeah,
we have tons of neighbors sitting here, and we're trying to make recommendations, right? To be cognizant of the neighbors and not totally step on their feet. We pull the gym out.
No, we
Now we're-
never pulled the gym out.
We
Let's
pulled the
make
gym
that
out last
clear.
meeting.
No, we did not. We did not. That
Okay.
has not.
We shrunk
I'm
it
sorry.
to a
The height was
activity room.
changed. The height was changed only. Let's move on. Go ahead, Dean. You can finish your sentence now.
Yep. So when we spoke with the neighbors, Dean Fabrizio, when we spoke with the neighbors, a lot of it was questioning about what they would see for the sightlines. That's why I asked about if we could get that vantage point. I hadn't heard complaints about a height of a gym. This is new to me. I think if leaving it shorter and not have the capability to have basketball, I think would be short-sighted, or whatever next pickleball is. If we need the height and can't do it, I think we're doing this, and if we do in fact find that the neighbors are against it for the extra 4 or 5 feet that we're putting in, we could go back and change it. But I don't see that, to be honest.
Mike Buswell again. It's not necessarily the height
Excuse
of it;
me.
it's the usage
Wait a minute.
of it.
I said Dave could go next. Kelly had her hand up, and then Mike. You can have another say. Thank you.
So Dave Gala, so in our last conversation, I think we were all in favor of a two-story floor, because a two-story building, feeling that was a little more user-friendly for programming within the building for the seniors. I spoke about having that gym height raised during that last meeting, primarily because of multi-use, the multi-use aspect of it. Mike, I do recall that you spoke about shrinking it at one point. But as we look at this, I feel that 20 feet might not even be enough, based on what the discussions have been with CIAC requirements. And and again, I said in our last meeting that we are not trying to make this a gym where we're going to have tournaments in. But it was said to us that senior citizens do play basketball. I believe that to be true. And again, building a facility primarily for the use of low sports, whatever they may be. Pickleball seems to be the fad of the day. Is not something that I think we should be planning towards. We should make a facility that the town is proud of, that can be used and be programmed by the Parks and Rec department where they see appropriate, and by the senior center management where they see appropriate as well. And I think that for us to provide something that does not accommodate those needs is short-sighted.
Thank you. Kelly, did you want to?
I'm going to wait because I have comments or questions that don't have to do with the gym. So, thanks.
And Lori wanted to speak. Lori, can you hear us?
There.
Muted, Lori.
Lori, you're muted.
I think I hear. Can you hear us, Lori?
She can hear us.
We don't hear her.
We can't hear you.
Can she put it? You guys can see her on the.
Yeah.
You can't hear anything though.
Can she put it on? Can she call somebody?
She's not
Put it on the
talking.
microphone?
She's not talking. She's trying to.
There she is.
Oh, there she is.
Something I don't have control over. It's with the setup guys, the guys who run the center.
The sound is off there.
You wanted to keep this conversation going?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm on my phone, on my computer, so it's something going on there.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, weird. Okay, I was unmuted, believe it or not, just by my voice. I just want to address really quick what happened from the last meeting to now. I think our goal at the last meeting was, our concern was a 3-story building. Probably that was maybe 2 meetings ago, I'm sorry, a 3-story building. And I think the goal of that was what Tom and Rocco tried to achieve at our last meeting. There was concern from the Parks and Rec Department, from some committee members, that we are being short-sighted. My goal in asking them to take another swipe at this was to keep the same footprint and just heighten the ceiling height. With that, there's no intent on tournaments. There's no intent on 24/7. It's obviously a smaller gym. It will be up to the town to keep that programming within reason from what we've heard from the neighbors. It is nowhere near anything that we've thought about in the past as far as a gym, from my understanding. Dave may be right. It may not be tall enough for big guy basketball, but there may be a potential for some smaller kid basketball. And I just think it was a great way to keep it open. It does not change our perspective on footprint or on the busyness of that place from my understanding. It's not a big change from last time. We were definitely opposed to the 3 stories, and I wish I could be louder, Dawn. This is it. This is the most I've talked in a week. That's, to me, it's a compromise, somewhere between just a couple pickleball courts, and a full-size gym. And I think the intent is to not make it a constant gym use place, but to have potential for gyms, for gym activities beyond just what we were looking at before. I understand that, last time some people were in complete agreement and some people weren't, and that's how this process works, right? We keep moving on. So again, intent was to keep it to 2 stories. There was a lot of concern from Michelle's perspective to have a 3-story building. This cuts down on elevators, all the things that we thought were the benefit of the last drawing. And this is just, to me, a small enhancement. It doesn't change the footprint. That's important. Programming is not going to be out of control as long as we keep voicing that will be a priority. Thank you.
Okay. And then let me make sure that the intent comes across, that this is supposed to be a multi-sport space. The intent is not, by the committee standards, to introduce a space where tournaments can be had. We don't have the height for that. And if you look at the plan, there isn't enough room for bleachers, so there won't be any people spectating here. The intent for building out this space is for the seniors to have a spot for high sport, for kids, as Lori mentioned. And ultimately, it's under the purview of this committee to determine what happens in that space, this committee and Michelle and Dimitri.
Well, I told Kelly she could go next. If you can turn off your mic, Ron, please. Thank you.
Are we moving on to other questions? Okay. The gate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Ron.
Vent off?
Okay.
No, the issue is the echo.
There's a way in and a way out, right? We're only putting a gate on the one side? Or are we putting gates on both entrance and exit?
No, we're only putting the gate at the entrance to the lower parking area.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Don. I just wanted to voice my support for what Dave and Lori and others are saying. I think we are a community facilities building committee, and I think there should be some community elements here. And I think a basketball court, some kind of a compromised basketball court, is a good thing. We have other options for tournaments and intense use, but yeah, I mean, I think it would be short-sighted to just rule that out. And we are, not for nothing, but we are 38,000 people in this town, so we try to accommodate as many as we can without impeding on the neighbors. So that's my perspective.
Thank you. And Ron, just state your name when you speak, please.
This is Ron Feligno. Dimitri, I know you're back there. I can't see you quite behind Rocco, but are you there? Okay. Dimitri, I'd like to ask you a question. What is the actual activities that take place relative to basketball now through Parks and Rec?
Well, Parks and Recreation, especially during the winter months, utilize whatever available space there are within the school system.
Excuse me, Dimitri, speak up a little louder. Trouble hearing you.
That's my fault. Sorry about that vent. Parks and Recreation utilize gymnasium space wherever it's available within the various schools in town. Generally, as you can well imagine, we're not going into any of those spaces until school lets out. So all during the day, there really would be no activity in this gymnasium or any other. But essentially, we're running from about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, to maybe 8 or 9 o'clock every evening, Saturday if available, Sunday if available.
And those activities are taking place now. I'm not. Oh, in the
Yes,
summer,
they are.
In the summertime.
They are. Well, they're taking place right now in the winter.
How many activities have to be rescheduled because of lack of facilities?
Well, our program is severely hampered, and so it's repressed more than anything else, so we have to put limits on what we can do. We pack out whatever space is available. The demand for gym space and recreational use is fairly high in Trumbull. So if we have the availability to program a space, we'll find somebody to go into it.
So not to oversimplify things, but worst case, if there's a gym, it may help you. If there is no gym, it's a status quo for you.
Correct.
So-
Our goals with voicing any desire to program this facility is an expansion for us and to allow us greater ease of programming. We're held at the whim of Board of Education. So whether or not there is somebody there to open up a door, whether or not they are running their own programs, we have to work around that fairly consistently. If the sites are too small for any activities, whether it be volleyball, badminton, you name it, not all schools can facilitate that. So it becomes very difficult to try to make offerings for the requests that we generally get.
And I guess, as you had said, that it's difficult to anticipate the demand for another facility that's available.
That's correct. I mean, it's if you, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just trying to get an idea of what the utilization might be if we can project, as difficult as it might be.
Well, as I listened to a lot of the discussion about this conceptual building, I can't help but just kind of scratch my head until this facility actually exists. And I'm sure Michelle will speak to that as well. Once the space is there, then really the thinking has to go, full-fledged as to what the demands are, what can fit in that space, and how it can harmonize with what else is happening in that facility. It's a little premature, and I think when Rocco and Tom are just sort of putting a title on a proposed activity, it's not necessarily the activity or it's sacrosanct that is the one place where yoga will be. Yoga might be over there, but it says so over here. It's going to be in that room. It's not necessarily so. And the same is true for how we would utilize that gym space. If there is a extremely high demand for pickleball, it has to be set up or worked out so that it could transform into something else reasonably easily. So.
Okay, thank you, Dimitri. Whoops, I'm sorry. Rocco, one quick question, I'll wrap it up.
Yep.
Has there ever been any talk about dividing the gym as we've done the large area upstairs?
Yeah. And I would recommend that you probably do that. We have a divider in the gym. So
But that hasn't been spoken up to date?
Oh, that's part of our thought process.
Okay, thank you.
Rich.
Rocco, Rich Kroll.
Thank you.
Rocco, just so I understand, you talked about a lot of heights and things like that. So the proposal tonight, the height was 18 feet last meeting, I believe, right? So are we saying we're at 20 feet height now
Yeah.
on the gym?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, the gym actually is like 23, but the rest of the floor on that lower level is 21.
When you say rest of the floor, that's...
So at the lower level, you have to ramp down to get to the gym. The
Okay.
gym level is lower than the rest of that.
So like the fitness room, you're saying those are
The fitness
20
room is
feet?
at the same level as the gym, but the food pantry, the arts and crafts, the entry, the bathrooms there are at 21 floor to floor.
Okay. So 23 is pretty close to the peak height, right, that you would want for a gym? Was that 24 feet? Is that what I had?
It's lower,
Same?
because the 23 feet that we were talking about before was the clear to the underside of the structure. So the structure in that gym is going to be 3 to 4 feet deep. So your actual clear to underside is going to be 19.
Okay. So you've got structure to support the roof. That's
To
going to be...
support the floor at the multipurpose room level.
Okay, the multipurpose room. So, I mean, I think if we're going to build this facility, right, I'm in agreement with having a gym as long as sounds like it's being kept to a more reasonable size, middle school size, you're saying. No spectator area, so it's going to discourage any, tournaments, spectator type sports and keep it more to a recreational area, so That sounds reasonable to me. I think Tom said it was something about like maybe a 5% savings if we took the gym out. I don't know if anyone recalls. I think that's what I recall him saying. One concern that one of the neighbors brought up on Edgewood was this cafe overlook that we have. Do you have any idea how much that's going to overlook neighbors' properties?
Well, where it is, right? Let's get it in the back. Essentially, the level of that overlook is at the street level, or the side level, the grade level of everything else that's around it. And really, the only vantage point it has is directly east. You know, it has some vantage point north, but that should be blocked by the barrier buffer area.
Okay, and also, the way the parking lot grades right now, some of the folks in Long Hill Village were concerned that the grade comes down towards their property. And would there be a need for retaining walls potentially for the new parking lot that was gonna go in?
That's something that I really gotta have the site guy take a really good look at. You know, my initial thoughts in my conversations with him over the last couple of days would be as we we'll have to remove material to put the building kind of in the bank of the hill. Do we take that material and we use that to berm up, you know, the property edges, you know, which will, you know, create like almost like a little hill to keep anybody in the parking lot from eyeballing into the neighboring properties.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members?
So just one further question. So Dave Galla, and again, Rocco, thank you for putting all this together. You just talked about removal of material and using that for berming. Would that, and you're not the civil engineer, I understand that, but could we also keep in consideration any possible drainage that may affect the neighbors on both sides of these properties and try to mitigate, you know, drainage issues? Thank you.
That's part of most zoning regulations,
Yep.
that you need to keep any water that's on your property.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have anything else to add, Rocco? I know you touched on the abutting neighbors, the walking tour, and the next areas that you're looking at. Is there anything else that you want to bring up? You touched basically on everything.
Yeah, I think
that we discussed with the neighbors.
Right. I think I did. And then to make a comment to the comment from earlier tonight, you know, you guys have been working on this since 2016, and it's been on, what, 6 different sites so far, give or take? So this is an iterative process. It's, you know, the program has changed. So to really kind of, the reason why the community center program kind of changes through each iteration is that the site changes and the priorities change for the project depending on where it is and at the time and who's in charge of running it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Oh, sure.
So Dave Galla again, sorry. To the best of your knowledge, could you tell me approximately how high this building is in its current state?
You mean like off the grade in the model here as we're showing it? I believe it's at 14 feet to the eave.
14 feet from the front?
Yeah.
Of the building? Okay.
Yeah.
And how does that compare to the current church facility taking the steeple out?
It's about the eve of the church. Well, the eve of our building here and the eve of the church, this is about 1.5 feet taller at the eve, but the ridges on this building are much lower. I don't know exactly how much lower it is than the main ridge of the church, but it's definitely lower than what the church is.
Okay. So the overall
height is lower
than what's there. That was one of the concerns that we heard while we were out on our tour.
Thank you. And then next on the agenda is next steps, and Lori said she has an update. Lori, can you get on again?
I can try. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna try to talk a little louder. You know, I know you guys touched on the abutting neighbors walking tour. I just want to thank everybody who took the time, including Rocco, to go and do that. You know, most of the feedback has been talked about this evening. If anybody else who went on that tour wants to add anything, but again, thank you for taking the time. If not, the next steps we've been talking about for a while, and Rocco can probably follow up with this, but Tom, who is not feeling well as well, but I believe in a different state, did send me a little update on some of our timing for some of our next steps. Obviously, one of the next things that has to happen is the traffic counts. The plan for that, as of right now, is right after the holiday, so between approximately January 4th to 10-ish, somewhere in that week, depending on weather and timing. I think that's just the plan for that. That would make the traffic report for that ready at the end of January, which would lead us to a meeting with the Traffic Commission, hopefully in early February. All of that has to happen before we can go to P&Z to look for the 824. Our next meeting will be more information about where we are in those steps. There's also, part of our steps are meeting with the fire marshal. That can happen probably sooner rather than later based on what information they already have right now. So that's what he has discussed about what our next upcoming things are. All of this follows through with the building committee rules. He also talked about meeting with the Conservation Committee. They can advise us. They don't really have to report, but I know he talked about doing that. So that's a general idea for next steps. We'll probably have some more formal timings and meeting dates for that coming up. So does anybody have any questions about that?
No.
Okay. The other thing I want to mention is we were not put on the town council agenda. I know the town council meeting has changed a couple times for this month. I will touch base with Carl and see if he would like us to be there in January just to give a general report. It won't be a formal report, obviously, because all these other things will be happening subsequently. That meeting is January 6th, so I will let the committee know if that's happening. Our next meeting is January 8th. We will be in council chambers. There was some confusion about whether we'd have the room, but we do. And so those are some upcoming meeting dates that I'll keep everybody informed about. But I believe that's it for next steps.
Great. Thank you, Lori.
Mm-hmm.
And then under new business, the two things that we have is to approve two invoices from QA&M. One is 16569 in the amount of $5,442.04. If I can have a motion or to accept or pay that invoice.
So moved. Dave Gala.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Second, Kelly Malazzi.
Okay. Any discussion? No. It's for professional services, site evaluations, concept and threshold design, and mileage. Seeing no other discussion. All those in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously. And then the second one is for reimbursable expenses for mileage for $138.02. Can I have a motion to accept 16642 for $138.02?
So moved, Kelly Malazzi.
A second, please. Thank you, Rich. And any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye, that passes unanimously. I don't see anything else on there. Lori, do you have anything else you'd like to ask?
No, I think that's good for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Feel better.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And
I didn't want any of you to share this for the holidays. And happy holidays to everyone, and drive safe tonight.
thank you. Yes, happy holidays to everybody. And thanks the neighbors also for coming out during those tours and speaking with each of us. We really appreciated your feedback. And then please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions to the chairman, and we will get back to you on some other matters that have been brought up, okay?
Motion to adjourn. in the middle of your
And
sentence.
a
Sorry.
second, please.
I'll second. Christina Laris.
Thank you. All those in favor? Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.